Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today and welcome to the IDC webinar, Embracing the AI-Driven Paradigm Shift. I'm Christina Santander, Events Manager here at IDC. If you're new here, let me introduce you to IDC. IDC is a premier global provider of market intelligence, advisory services, and events for the information technology industry. We have over 1,300 analysts across 110 countries worldwide, and IDC is a wholly owned subsidiary of IDG, the world's leading tech, media, data, and marketing services company. All right, let me just give you a few housekeeping items, notes before we get started. This webinar is scheduled for 1 hour. The slides are already available to you under the resources tab and also in the lobby of the webinar. The recording will be available via email. You will get an email tomorrow, so you can watch anytime. And we are planning also for a Q&A session at the end. It will be about 15 minutes long, so please send your questions in. You can use the Q&A button or icon at the bottom of your screen to send your questions. All right, and without further ado, I'll introduce you to our speaker today. We have Ritu Jyoti. We're so grateful to have you here today, Ritu. Ritu is our GVP and GM for Worldwide Artificial Intelligence, Automation, Data, and Analytics Research at IDC. Really busy lady these days with all the topics around AI being so hot right now. So very grateful to have you, Ritu, join us.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be a part of this presentation today. So without further ado, as you said, let's get this started. So I'm going to first start with that, just give you a quick overview of what I do and what I kind of am driving at IDC currently. So IDC, we are at the trifecta of interactions with technology buyers, technology suppliers, as well as investor community. And the three ways in which we can help our customers is actually through our research, through our data and analytics, and through custom solutions. And when I talk about research, we are kind of connecting the dots between what the tech buyers are looking for from the tech suppliers and vice versa, and also bringing in the investor community, because we all know that startups are the most important and buzzing kind of entities right now. We are very blessed to have analysts across different geographies, across different industries. We cover the entire technology stack. So this can help you answer all your immediate questions, where we are in the journey. It can expand your understanding and confidence through our spending guides, through our tracker. We are known for our data products. And on top of that, we also help you with your specific markets and opportunities through our custom engagements. Today, I'm super excited to talk to you about, embracing the AI-driven paradigm shift. We all know that AI is no longer a fleeting trend, and especially GenAI, which has been a major catalyst to the overall AI adoption. And as GenAI continues to mature, the use of AI in driving business innovation and growth will only become more pronounced and strategic. And organizations that can effectively scale these AI initiatives and integrate them into their core operations will be the ones to lead in the new frontier, reaping the benefits of increased efficiency, deeper insights, and enhanced decision-making. And we all kind of very actively looking into it that, last year there was a lot of experiments going on. And I'll share some insights in a few minutes that how we are seeing organizations are advancing in their journey. And this year, 2024, will mark a significant leap towards a future where AI is seamlessly woven into the fabric of business, driving productivity and innovation. So with that, there are two parts or two sections of my presentation today. The first section, I'm going to talk about where we are with the GenAI adoption and where we are heading and what organizations need to do in the second part of my presentation to kind of really scale and embrace that AI is not something that you can afford to ignore. I was chuckling this morning as somebody posted something on LinkedIn where it said that AI is not just a hype, and I couldn't agree more with that. So let's get this. A lot has happened in the last 12 to 18 months, if I may say. And I'm super happy to share with you that we at IDC in October of 2022 had predicted that GenAI foundation models are going to become standard utilities by 2026. But the Cambrian explosion that happened last year is clearly attributed to OpenAI and their innovation. But today we are very, very comfortable in saying that GenAI is poised to be one of the greatest disruptors to impact humans in society. And as per our generative AI ARC survey, we almost 37.4% of the organizations reported, and this is worldwide across industries, that GenAI will disrupt their competitive position or their business models. So it begs the question that what is really happening, and who could have answered it better than Larry Summers, economist and former United States Secretary of the Treasury. I love it, the way he says it. He says that AI is coming for the cognitive class, and there's a substantial chance that AI will be a threat to IQ versus EQ. So what does this mean? It basically means that it impacts every knowledge worker. And if it impacts every knowledge worker, that means it's going to impact every organization, regardless of which industry, which geography you're sitting in. And we are kind of coming to this understanding very rapidly that GenAI and AI will be much more than any technological advancements we have seen in our lifetime. The business environment is changing exponentially. And metaphorically speaking, you might have wondered as to why did I have this fluid raging ocean? That's how the business environment looks like right now. So with that, before we go further, Christina, let's have a quick poll question here.
Okay, I'll launch the poll and we're getting some questions in, some responses. So we'll leave it on for a little while and see what we get. Okay, I think we got lots of responses. We'll end the poll and share the results.
Thank you, Christina. Oh, awesome. This is much better than what I would have expected. So awesome. Okay, let's get going. So there is a reason why I had asked this question, because we have been at the forefront of regular, kind of cadence of surveys. And earlier in 2023, when we had asked organizations as to where they are in their current state of, evaluating or using GenAI, many of the organizations reported they were doing nothing. I'm talking about it in March. And I remember speaking to a lot of end users, and they told me that things will dramatically change towards the second half of the year, and they were spot on. We saw that there was a lot more interest, and organizations were investing significantly and also doing some initial testing. But when we ran this similar survey earlier this year, it was loud and clear that the organizations, they are way more advanced. They are already introduced several GenAI enhancements. If you look into this chart, this is 18%. And if I remember it correctly, just by virtue of the response, it was almost like 37 or 39% of the respondents who said that they were already using, and they had introduced several GenAI capabilities. So what does that mean? It basically is telling us that this is the time that organizations need to focus on expansion. And I'll go through some of the details as to what we are hearing and seeing in the industry. But the message is very, very clear that the organizations are advancing in their journey towards AI adoption and GenAI in production, and they're very interested in expansion and scaling it. And that's the meat of my whole presentation today. So with that, if you're kind of curious as to how does it kind of share between large enterprises or smaller enterprises, because many times we think that it's only the smaller enterprises who are agile, they don't really need to kind of, really set and stack the entire system. But here, larger enterprises are further ahead in production deployments. And that is very interesting because of the whole nature of how the foundation models and the GenAI can be kind of realized into value. The second area, which is interesting, is like from an industry perspective, finance and retail are furthest ahead. Actually, as per our research, there are certain other industries that are poised to be biggest, disrupted to the maximum. But it is interesting that because finance and retail, especially finance, they were already ahead of the rest of the industries in terms of their AI adoption, and they have been able to embrace GenAI much more faster than the rest of the organization. So with that, if I kind of look into, we are known for a spending guide, and we were one of the first, firm to kind of come up with the solid numbers. So we have been doing AI spending guide for a long time, long before GenAI came into existence. And in this particular slide, you're seeing that we are predicting that it's going to be almost 512 billion by 2027. The overall CAGR is 31%. And when we kind of go and drill down a little bit further, the GenAI is almost like a CAGR of 86% versus the rest of AI, which is 24%. But I do want to call out, because I get tons of questions on this, is that, there's so many, scenarios in which the traditional AI is actually going to be infused with Gen AI. There'll be convergence between different types of AI technologies. We don't double count. So until and unless there are separate product SKU and we actually have a separate kind of commercialization of that, that's when we start kind of putting that as a separate Gen AI. So it's the essence, it's the foundation where the things start. The second is that open source is being used extensively and it's not monetized. So until and unless there is a monetization aspect on top of it, we do not count it. So I just wanted to make sure everyone gets that clear. Then the second thing here is that it's about the GenAI market opportunity. And if you look here, we are kind of talking about 151 billion by 2027. The key takeaway from this slide, you'll be getting access to these slides, is that today, the majority of the value realization is at the infrastructure level. And we all know there's one company which is dominating and having the best times. But over a period of time, a lot more optimization will be done. And those part of the infrastructure become commodities, and it's natural progression in any technology. But the value that we are seeing is that tremendous amount of growth and value will be created in the platforms and the application space. In the platforms, especially in the next 1 to 3 years, there's tremendous amount of need for the tooling. Every customer that I speak to, they're struggling. How do I scale it? How do I piece the things together? So you'll see significant investments and growth in the platform business, as well as in the applications, where unique domain-specific applications and models will be brought into existence to create and target specific, business problems in those areas. But having said that, I think everyone is kind of struggling. What are the right use cases? Which are the business area which will have the most impact? And there's no doubt in our mind that, some of the areas, the foundational elements will actually get a lot more attention. Last year, everyone kept on talking about sales and marketing. Don't get me wrong, they're still very important, but the focus is a lot more on the software development and design, product development and design, supply chain, a lot of back office functions as well. And so you will see that tremendous amount of, investments in that area. One thing that I do want to call out here in the software development and design, it's not just the auto completion of the code, it's the automated software testing, vulnerability testing, documentation. All of that is extremely critical. When you think about, there are lots of barriers. We have been talking about AI challenges for a long time, but even in the case of Gen AI, some of the strengths, they continue to be the same. In the early days, data security and privacy was very much on the forefront. I'm not saying that it has kind of, diminished in any form and value, but the point is that many organizations, tech suppliers have come up with their guardrails. They've put together there's a lot more better understanding and maturity in those areas, how you can put, your data is your data. Every tech supplier is saying that they have to seek your permission. Copyright infringement is a big concern, and we'll talk a little bit more on that. But trust in AI is critical. And this is not just about the tools and technology. How are the organizations maturing in terms of their entire end-to-end governance and end-to-end understanding it's not about just setting up your policies and principles, but also putting in processes to kind of look into that and ensure adherence to it. data has been a forever problem, and the focus is more on high quality data than the volume of the data. And the other, area that I keep hearing from all the end users is that finding a partner is difficult. Organizations are looking at tech suppliers not to be just their tech suppliers in the real sense, but be a trusted partner who can help them, define prioritize, define, and kind of be co-creators with them. So that is the trend really, really going forward. So now that I covered the first part of the presentation, where we are, what is the market opportunity, which are the business areas that organizations are focused on, there are some pitfalls and challenges, and started with this poll question that, where are organizations in that? And it is a real pleasant surprise that, many organizations, even as per our poll results here, over 30% of the organizations are already investing, and the focus is on expansion. So you really don't kind of realize the ROI until and unless you really put your best processes and policies and make the right decisions to scale AI for value. And that will be the part of the meat of my presentation. So let's go start with a poll first. So Christina, over to you.
All right, we'll launch the poll now. And there you are. So if the second question is for this poll, thinking about your investments in GenAI in the next 18 months, how will these investments be allocated to the following types of use cases? 1, productivity use cases. 2, functional use cases. 3, industry use cases. I'll give a bit more time for people to respond. All right, we'll end the poll now, and I'll share the results. There you have it.
Absolutely aligned with our other surveys. So more than, almost 50% say that they're focused on productivity use cases, but it's very nice to see that they're also looking into functional use cases and industry use cases. So we are good to kind of proceed with the next set of slides. Okay. So there's a reason why we asked that, right? And it is very much aligned with our survey here, which we did earlier this year, that there are early forays into GenAI is all about on driving productivity and efficiency. And, productivity use cases is getting the majority of it. But as per our, current poll, you saw it's almost 50%. Here we are talking about 35%. So don't get me wrong, productivity is extremely important. And many companies, it involves experimenting with use cases, which is a natural choice as a low risk play to gain confidence and trust in this new modality. And for these productivity use cases, companies are using GenAI to solve problems that they already know how to solve using legacy techniques, but GenAI can help them do it faster with the added security of using humans to check the work, right? So that's where we are seeing majority, but we have to kind of go beyond that. Productivity is going to become table stake. Everyone is going to do that. And the whole idea of investing in productivity is to kind of focus on higher value use cases, right? So if you take a look into one of the business value of AI study that we did, what are the most important business outcomes that organizations are looking for? Again, everyone is kind of talking about operational efficiency and productivity here. There's a slight nuance in Asia Pacific. And what we understand is that every country in Asia Pacific is a government mandate to be an AI first company and be really at the forefront of growth and innovation. And that is the trend that we're going to see in the rest of the world as well. So if you think about the use cases, we've put together a GenAI functional use case taxonomy, and you can see that every other business function, whether it is software development or HR or IT or finance, each one of them have been identified, and these are some of the leading use cases. And I'm going to skip going into the details here, but just for example, contact center, we all know it completely transformed during COVID, and with all the advancements in natural language processing techniques, we all have been a witness as to how fantastic our experience changed from the early days of chatbot to the other. And GenAI is going to take it to the next level, and we are going to talk about it in a few slides. But this is something, an area which is going to be hugely transformed by GenAI. The infusion of GenAI is actually going to be contact center. But when we think about the top business benefits, it kind of begs to kind of discuss here that many companies are stuck in a transitional phase, right? They're focused on expanding labor productivity, but is it going to be the real way of actually staying competitive? Remember, I shared at the start of the presentation that 37.4% of the respondents said that they feel that their competitive position is at stake. Their business model needs to change. So if you think here, while on the left-hand side, their organizations are spending and investing monies in disjointed use cases that create productivity gains, but it's not able to drive the overall business objective that the executives are targeting. Every organization on this planet, regardless of whatever we say, is looking to be a force to be reckoned with, to have sustainable competitive business value. And for that, they have to focus on innovation and growth. So both top line and bottom line is important. They are focused on bottom line, but in order to put more investments and time in growth. So what should they be doing? So our advice is always focus on the big picture. It's great to kind of get started, get your feet wet, get yourself focused on something that you already know. Where are your problems? You can make the employees focus on the higher value, but start with the business outcomes. And companies need to really shift focus beyond seeking productivity to really delivering fundamental shifts in what they do and how they do it, if they want to be there in the industry. Think about interconnected use cases, right? Experimenting with a variety of GenAI use cases is important and should not be discounted, right? You get your feet wet, you get understanding, but to get unstuck and scale AI for value, leaders really need to start with the business outcomes that they're trying to do. And when you think about there is a reason why GenAI has been on top of corporate agenda, how they can, look into the end-to-end value chain. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. But think about, productivity. We all know that it's about, automating repetitive tasks, performing analytics. You can get some insights with, silos of GenAI, where you can mine unstructured data. We all know, traditional analytics could get you insights from the structured data, but mining and unstructured data to generate deeper customer insights is very critical. It can help you faster decision-making and the right decision-making, right? But then if you think about the other area where people kind of fall short is that because it's in pockets that they're looking into, okay, they can do this much faster, they can do this much faster, or they can do it much more efficiently. But does it connect in terms of the bigger picture of what? Suppose if an organization is trying to, let's take the example of, resilient supply chain. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that that's the overarching goal. So suppose if you do something in pocket without really creating this end-to-end, interconnection of meeting this business objective, the company is going to fall short on the usage. They'll be draining money without tangible ROI. For example, GenAI could be used to gather some external intelligence. Traditional AI, predictive AI, could be used to predict what's the future demand. You can use a combination of both the technologies to determine procurement plan, and then you can look into an ongoing optimization, production, and inventory plans. So resilience, agility, and sustainability, all the pillars of a strong and a more advanced supply chain. So the point that I'm trying to kind of stress upon is that look into what your organization is looking from a bigger picture, depending upon the industry that it sits in. Where is the competitive differentiation? follow, I mean, this is a standard thing that we all have kind of talked about, follow the 80-20 rule. So look into, become an ambidextrous organization. Some of the areas, you have to focus on, your operational efficiency, your productivity gains, but then continue to look into how you can combine the value of different parts of the technology, look into what is your end, like if an organization is supposed trying to drive growth in a certain area. And one of the pitfalls is that in order to drive growth, they have to launch new products. So think about new innovation. And for that innovation, think about right from end to end across all the business functions. So I think I've stressed a lot on this point, but let's give some example. So one example that is very obvious, right? You might be thinking, and I have been asked this question so many times, that, what is GenAI going to do? We always been using customer service. We already, have contact center AI solutions. There are so many ways in where GenAI and the combination of conversational AI can take it to the next level, right? For example, there is a human agent, and the cases in which the conversation is, moved to the human agent, he or she can actually get much faster insights to draft contextual answers to queries and chats and emails. Even the virtual agent can actually get better insights, right? I'm also hearing that organizations are using, to create GenAI created code and being used in AI solutions. So it's completely day and night in terms of integration of the traditional AI technologies and integration with, GenAI in terms of productivity and efficiency. And when you have good customer experience, how it impacts the overall, growth and innovation aspects as well. Let's think about the traditional AI ML life cycle, right? I mean, people who had been more advanced in the terms of usage of AI they're now seeing that AI, integrating GenAI, for example, it can be used for curating synthetic data generation to eliminate the bias. They don't have the right quality data sets. It can automate the data pipelines. Similarly, we all have been talking about use of computer vision across industries. And here are a couple of examples. In the interest of time, I'm just going to cover one or two of them here. Think about, automated inventory management in retail. And retailers can use the combination of LLMs and computer vision for automating their whole inventory management system. So we all know cameras are equipped with computer vision, can scan shelves and identify items, noting their placement and quantity. And the data captured by these cameras is then processed by a large language model, which generates detailed inventory reports, provides restocking alerts, and even assists in forecasting future inventory needs. So you can see the power and combination of these two techniques coming together to create an end-to-end solution and meet the overall objective. And also, there has to be interconnected use cases that I have been stressing on by kind of extending it beyond, the whole, just the automated inventory here, but linking it to your procurement plan, to your supplier plans, and all of that. The other example, we all have been at the forefront of security discussions, and think about, like the combined capabilities of large language models and computer vision can really revolutionize the surveillance systems. They can detect an intruder and generate a comprehensive report detailing the incident, accelerating threat response times, and significantly enhancing security. So these are just some examples where the combination of the technologies can really make a huge difference. So all this is really, really sounding fantastic. They are all kind of, thinking, starting with the business outcomes, connecting the use cases, and not really focused on siloed use cases. But the reality is that, which is very, very true for any other technology, the LLMs are going to become a commodity. I remember, early days, there were a couple of, very interesting startups who had just put, wrappers around LLMs, and they had a valuation of about, $1 billion. And as soon as ChatGPT was launched, it tanked. So you really have to think outside the box, and just invoking LLMs is not going to give you incremental revenue gains. So think about, like in the early days of machine learning, much of the development process was model centric, and everyone was focused on, doing the hyperparameter engineering or feature, engineering to kind of make sure that the model performs right to what the data was available. Now, people are looking into a data-centric AI. In the era of GenAI specifically, they have already been trained in vast corpus of data. And how do you make it more valuable in your own organization is by either fine-tuning or using the RAG methods to kind of contextualize and provide the right context. So we will hear and focus a lot more on high quality data and data-centric, because if you really want to be, unlock your own sustainable value, you really have to focus on the data. And data has been a problem for a long time. Today, we are seeing that many organizations, they are stuck in how do you use different data sources to kind of add value. And many of the organizations are just stuck with the internal proprietary data. But now we are seeing a trend that they'll be looking into public open source data, licensed data from third-party service providers, and customer data is always at the forefront of it. So I cannot emphasize enough that the use of data is critical to kind of take your, your business value and your overall value using AI techniques to the next level. So I'm going to build this slide to some extent here. I'm just leveraging the standard business model canvas. This is a part of my presentation that I had done at our annual conference, but I thought I'll share with you all also some glimpses of it because this is very, very critical. As I said, LLMs are becoming a commodity. How do you, whether you're a tech buyer or a tech supplier, continue to kind of unlock differentiated value? And data is going to be at the heart of it. The very first thing in the create value part of the business model canvas, which is the standard business model canvas that I'm referencing here, is that Gen AI product usage and experience data can help you create differentiated experiences, right? And this is the time when organizations need, for years, captive user experience always connects the hooks to the customer environment. So think about how are you, as the technology advances and the competitive landscape of AI-driven solution grows, the user experience will become an even more significant differentiator. And you could use your product usage or your experience data. There's some technologies that they came a little bit ahead of the times, and they were not perfect, but they learned a lot, and then they continue to refine. So don't be shy in getting your product out in the market. You can get it out in a little bit more controlled fashion, but learn from that and create differentiated experience. Really rethink your product design. Conversational interface will become the new interface. Those traditional click kind of interfaces, those graphical user interfaces will become a thing of the past. So really, really focus on that. The second area is that, redefined enterprise workflows. There's an arms race, if I have to say, going on between the tech suppliers. Everyone is trying to integrate GenAI capabilities, but they are doing it in a little bit more cautious way because they have their existing products, right? But what really needs to change is that organizations who can actually completely redefine the enterprise workflow. For example, let's take the pitch book creation. It's a very, very highly competitive investment banking, for example, is a very highly competitive, fast-paced industry, and the banks need to get ahead to win deals, and junior bankers are putting together tons of effort to search through a multitude of unstructured data and create. But GenAI can be used to gather, process, and summarize information in seconds and create reports. So you don't need to kind of go through the same old process that you have been doing. So any organized supplier or any organization that they can change the workflows, they'll be really be, using. And again, here you're using a single company process data to kind of use this. The last example here is actually when you can actually learn how to kind of, take permissions from the end users to get their data so that it can enhance, just like the call home facility. And you can, they're not going to share your proprietary data, but your multiple companies' non-proprietary data. Suppose Microsoft Teams is having an issue. Would you like to be suffer with that? Or would you like actually that to be taken care of if something has happened in another customer? So it's not going to be easy, especially with all the concerns about, data security and privacy and copyright, but you have to seek permissions and take permissions and then do it with the non-proprietary data. The last two that I'm going to talk about here is that if you think in the business model canvas, how you can deliver value. Gone are the days when channels are just a place to connect, right? Marketplaces and channels can be completely amplify your interaction with the end user. You could use it to create a unique experience curated for that particular organization. So this will actually, here you could use a single company process, brand, and culture data, and really revolutionize your channel interactions with them. It can amplify the interaction, it can create unique touch point, and it can also provide simplified and consistent experience regardless of how they interact with you. And the last example that I'm going to kind of work here is that in the capture value, when you're kind of, getting to the company. The simplest example here, I mean, I can talk at length in this topic here, but is like if you could use a single company proprietary outcomes data to kind of give a dynamic, pricing. And a very simple example that comes to my mind is that we all read Wall Street Journal. Somebody might be interested in, say, technology section. Somebody might be interested in, say, the finance section. So depending upon the exclusivity of content, the breadth of the content, it needs to be dynamically priced. And subscription-based flat pricing is going to be a very, very challenge in the future. We are in a transition journey, so think about that. But I wanted to stress that as you are trying to scale the AI for business, and if you just do the bare bones and basics, you will not be able to sustain it. Forget about scaling. You can scale it, but again, move your focus from just the mere productivity to innovation and growth. And as you're in this journey, think about how you can create some unique value, whether you're a tech buyer or a tech supplier in all of these cases, and use a standard business model canvas. I've just given you a couple of insights, but you can go deeper into each one of these areas. So I'm sure people are thinking that, okay, this is all sounding very good, but other examples of customers who are completely revolutionizing, and they have three very interesting examples that I can talk you through. CarMax has completely revolutionized or transformed the used car buying experience. They have actually been reported to have 48.8% revenue growth in Q4 of 2022, which is quite unheard of. L'Oreal has been working with Ironclad, and they have been very much at the forefront of completely revolutionizing the contract management system. Morgan Stanley has been, completely revolutionizing the investment management recommendations for the through the financial advisors. So there are tons, many examples. These are just a few examples, and everyone is not just focused on impacting the bottom line. They're looking into, as I said, focus into those 20% and be an ambidextrous organization, because these are the initiatives, if you're transforming how it works in an industry, is going to take you places. But I am going to build this here. Every organization needs to do it responsibly, right? So they need to become responsible at the core. And I kind of alluded to it. You need to start with your AI principles and, make sure you have the right governance committee. Everyone in the organization, especially in the era of AI and GenAI, needs to be AI-fied. They need to be trained, and work with your technology partners to have the right set of tools to kind of operationalize your AI governance. And remember that AI governance is not just at the end user level or at the infrastructure level. It is across the stack. And in the infrastructure layer, mitigate leakage of sensitive data. Model layer, if there's one thing that you can focus on, is to kind of insert governance on your model selection and avoid dangerous or non-compliant scenarios, jailbreaks, which can break the safeguards. Application layer, make sure that prompt injections, content filtering, and abuse monitoring are kind of taken care of. End users govern how they can use the code of conduct, logging, monitoring, risking scenarios, and the list goes on. So with that, I thought it's also critical to kind of talk about that, how is it impacting our workforce? Are people kind of being laid off? Are their jobs kind of being taken away? Is it just for productivity gains? The answer is very loud and clear. At this particular point in time, We are seeing that organizations are investing tremendous amount of money in retraining and reskilling. But what stood out for us is that this is actually going to be focused more on, business growth. So redeployment will be happening, reskilling and upskilling of the individuals are happening. And there might be some jobs that might be replaced. We all are, witness to things that have happened with advancements in technology, but there'll be lots more net new job creation. And at least in the foreseeable future, the net impact is more positive. That's what we are tracking. So with that, let me just kind of wrap up with a couple very interesting advice that we are kind of collecting with our interactions with a broad set of customers, right? So the message is very loud and clear that you have to embrace AI-driven paradigm shift. This is not about using AI in some use cases or in some scenarios just for productivity gains. AI is going to be everywhere. AI is going to be infused with every business function, every other technology, whether it is AR, VR, whether you're driving a digital transformation initiative, you're talking about digital twin. So clearly define the business objectives and use cases. Make sure your AI strategy is in alignment with your corporate strategy and focus on that. And I think the most important thing here is focus with the business objectives and interconnected use cases, but make sure that you're focusing on the signals and don't kind of get lost with all the noise that is being created, right? There are important decisions that a CI will need to make to eliminate non-performing pilots. You are jumping into the fray and learning and experimenting, but be agile in kind of killing or discontinuing those pilots which are not performing. My favorite is the second point, right? I mean, we have heard it very, very clear in the automation side as well. It's not, establish a very, very clear operating model with your leadership support, but it's not about, just kind of, going with the flow with the usual stuff, because many times organizations embrace newer technologies, but they are not focused on how the pieces fit together. And then they're lost into spending so much money and inefficiency. So focus on the integration. So technology leaders, they picked up a few LLMs from this particular provider, a few LLMs from that provider, a few solutions from here. They don't kind of integrate well. They don't have the right set of data at the right time. And that can create a lot of problems. So continue to kind of look into integration solution. The third is that everyone needs to focus on end-to-end orchestration. Of course, data is important, but it's not about just experimenting and training and tuning, but also how do you kind of build your data pipelines, your machine learning pipelines, your GenAI lifecycle pipelines, you get them into production, you monitor them, think about the drift scenarios, how do you automatically take correction of that? So end-to-end orchestration is embedding the organization's domain and workflow expertise into the management of the step-by-step flow, and sequencing the model, the data, the system interactions of an application will be fundamental to you scaling and realizing enduring value. The next one is actually focus on adherence. Everyone I talk to, they all talk about that, okay, we are kind of, we have our AI principles defined, we have our systems in place and processes in place, we have a governance committee, we have made sure that it is diverse. But it's in addition to training, you really need to make sure that you can adhere to all of these policies and principles. And even while the regulatory landscape is rapidly evolving, many of these regulatory landscapes are risk-based scenarios. For example, some of the regulations may not think a chatbot is like a risky scenario, but what if the chatbot is kind of, getting into some kind of foul language, or it hallucinates and give you some incorrect information? It can lead to some serious reputational damage. So focus on adherence, focus on human in the loop, focus on your processes that ensure that you're in the right area. And the last one is that it's all about people. Really make sure that your employees are coming together with you. Build cross-functional teams that can build and deliver. It can have the AI team, it can have the tech team, can have the domain team, and that partnership and collaboration is really critical in realizing the ROI and thinking outside the box and not just being stuck into your usual workflows, and how you actually disrupt that with the right set of teams who can actually think through and realize really, really tremendous value. I know from the top 5 advice, I kind of, tamed on the tools and technology, but I would like to stress on the fact that people really need to get a hold of their tools and technology. Just don't go crazy and insane with what tools you're using. Figure out your strategy, and of course you're going to pick up the best of the breed, but focus on keep it manageable. And the value GenAI could generate, is, we all know, is transformational, but capturing the full extent to what value will come when companies harness GenAI at scale. And this requires the senior leadership team to not just acknowledge what the hard truths are, or kind of, spread the myths there, but to act upon them and lead the business forward. So with that, I'll pass it on to Christina, and we'll open up for Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ritu. That was great. Great insights as always. All right. So we're going to get into our Q&A session now. If you haven't sent questions in, this is your time to send your questions. And I'll give you some time to send your questions in. If you want to know more about AI and all the research and all the resources that we have, I've made 2 ebooks available here for you. The first one includes use cases that could help you move the needle when it comes to GenAI. The second one is on whether you should build or buy. So that's a big debate right now. So click there, check that out. And for those of you asking about the slides, you can access them right now through the resources tab. Okay, so let's start with the first question. The first question here is, do you believe that AI will drive an acceleration of cloud adoption?
Oh, awesome. So yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking it loud here that, so far in 2024, if you look into all these 3 big hyperscalers, cloud computing giants, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, they're all generating more money in the cloud than ever before. The 3 cloud vendors have recently reported earnings result, and all of them extending multi-year streaks of continued revenue growth. I think off the top of my head, on April 25th, both Google and Microsoft reported results, and Google cloud revenue came in about 9.57 billion in their first quarter, for a 28% year-over-year gain. Microsoft was 35.1 billion, yeah, and up 23%, and likewise, right? So we are seeing an acceleration in the number of deals that are happening for these cloud providers across industries. So absolutely yes, but it also kind of begs this question that why? What are the key drivers of cloud adoption, right? So if I have to just simplify it in a couple of words, it will be, the AI and cloud computing, they have emerged as twin pillars of digital transformation. There is no AI without cloud and data. And there's a convergence of AI and cloud computing. The key drivers are scalability and flexibility. Cloud platforms, they provide an on-demand access to computing resources and enable enterprises to scale AI workloads. There's cost efficiency. I know it's a big misnomer that sometimes if you don't know how to manage your projects, and everyone talks about FinOps, but if managed well, and if you have the right set of FinOps tools and you're kind of doing it well, then it brings in a lot of cost efficiency. AI projects, they require significant computational resources, which can be cost prohibitive to provision and maintain on premises. Although I'm seeing that many organizations are doing it on premises, but again, long term, we do see that it's going to be hybrid, and a lot of organizations are going to balance between that. On the cloud, I also see that they get access to the advanced AI services. They have global reach and accessibility. Security and privacy were concerns in the past. Cloud providers have come a long way in terms of enhancing that, and the scale at which they do is kind of very, very interesting. So to sum it up, absolutely. There's a lot of synergies between cloud and AI, and whether it's your ERP solution or your CRM or SCM or HCM or your net new applications, we see a lot of them being kind of deployed on cloud.
All right. The second question we have is, how quickly will we begin to see AI use cases on the enterprise side that have appropriate ROIs? What are the most relevant areas you're monitoring right now?
Awesome. Brilliant question, because I think I started this whole presentation talking about, many of the organizations were focused on the productivity use cases. And even as part of our poll, we saw that almost 50% of them were focused, and it's very, very important. I also stressed on the fact that AI is not just GenAI, it's a lot more, it's broader. We had recently done, a couple of months back, a business value of AI study. And it was very interesting to see that many of the organizations, in fact, 71% of the respondents of that study, if I'm not mistaken, they were said that they were already using AI, and 92% of them were saying that it's taking 12 months or less. And the most important takeaway from that slide was study was that for every dollar a company invests in AI, they were realizing an average return of 3.5x. And actually, some percentage, if I'm not mistaken, 18 to 20% even said that they were realizing more than 3.5x. So this is the broader AI. Now, if you think about GenAI, we started seeing organizations reporting that they are heavily already invested into AI and focused on expanding their use cases into production. I gave you some examples of the early adopters as to how they have, kind of really realized significant ROI. But it's all about the right mindset. I have a feeling that many of the customers will actually have their things going mainstream and production this year. So we'll see that they'll have some significant ROI, even from the GenAI use cases. Majority, there are exceptions, and the early adopters will start seeing towards the later half of this year and next year. In terms of the business areas and the use cases that I'm kind of focused on is, like I did mention, customer experience will be customer contact center AI solutions, customer engagement. Enriching employee experience is also very, very interesting. And many of the organizations are seeing into to kind of, see that HR functions, recruit to retire, back office functions, they are also kind of, the co-pilot has become a thing of the every organization that I'm speaking to. They're kind of looking into usage of co-pilot and enriching the employee. I am also watching on, because I kept on saying that reshaping the business process, kind of disrupting your traditional workflows. And then 20%, I feel that there'll be some organizations will be looking into completely innovative ways of doing things or getting into some newer areas. So those are the 4 areas that I'm kind of very closely watching.
All right. And third question here is, how are companies pricing and monetizing GenAI offerings, and which method do you believe can see the greatest traction?
Awesome. Okay. So, like last year or even to the early part of this year, the majority of the conversations, and especially when you have the text models or image models and all, and they're being delivered as APIs, many of the organizations are kind of charging them as tokens and units and credits, and giving them the options as on a consumption base, right? As we already kind of discussed a little bit, that many of the organizations, technology suppliers, are going to embed GenAI into their technology offerings like ERP, CRM solutions. So it is part of embedded is another pricing model included as part of the innovation update. Sometimes they can command a premium. Before I forget, I do want to stress most of these organizations are giving a freemium pricing model as well. And then subscription is a little bit of a tricky. For some of the use cases, people are kind of charging a couple of dollars per user per month. But for the traditional ERP and CRM solutions, extensions, it will be, combination of subscription and usage for budget predictability reasons, especially the large enterprises are looking to that. So you might be thinking, why didn't I talk about outcomes-based? Outcomes-based pricing, we have spoken quite a few times in the past, but in majority of the use cases, organizations didn't really know what to define as the outcome. In the case of GenAI, it's a little bit much more clearer as to what is outcomes. So it will be linked to specific use cases, and we will see that. But my favorite is like the dynamic pricing. I'm encouraging all the technology suppliers to kind of embrace that and think about how you could create value and not give them one standard subscription pricing or one standard usage, just usage. Be creative. And that is the word that is going to be going forward.
All right. And we also are getting a lot of questions about some people not being able to access their resources. We'll make sure to give you access to that via email if you cannot find them right now. Okay. One more question we have. How do you see the role of professional services firms changing in the area of GenAI?
Wow, that's a brilliant question, because early days of GenAI, everyone was saying, "Oh, professional services firms are dead. It will all be used by GenAI, will be used in professional services." The answer is, I'm just kidding, guys. The answer is no. They have a huge, huge role to play. They are playing a role of a trusted partner. They are helping organizations kind of, run through, because we all know that this is not a destination, it's a journey. So there are three broad areas that organized services firms are playing a very significant role. It's in IT services, in business services. But one which interesting thing that we're seeing is like in the engineering, not just the IT and business, but also in engineering services, like in research and design and build and sustain, all the continuous improvement of all of these models, and operational technology deployment and management, and the usual IT services like assessment and planning, design and implementation. They're all their governance and support, and also looking for how do organizations do their strategy. But what is really going to dramatically change is that professional services organizations are going to make use of GenAI itself in services delivery. It's early days, but I've already seen many of the consulting firms kind of, using it for knowledge management. They're using it for IT consulting, as asset inventory, discovery, and health assessment. They're using it for software development. They're themselves using it for their own code development and deployment, right? They're using it for customer services. So that is an area which is going to be closely watched for the professional services, how they can integrate GenAI for services delivery. One of the questions that I keep getting is that going to impact as to the duration and the cost? Today, it's early days. There's a lot of course, faster is definitely possible. But cost, because of where the cost is for GenAI, it's bit premature, but I do expect that to be transformed. But before I kind of wrap up my response to this question, I do want to stress on one important thing here is that when enterprises are looking for the professional services organization, they are looking for help in the firms to have the impact assessment, ROI models and benefit, because they have worked with so many other organizations. And we stressed on that every organization needs to focus on ROI and not just become, use disjointed use cases. So they're looking for guidance, and end users are very interested in looking into professional services firm provide that help. So I think many of the professional services firms will now have to lead with usage of GenAI in the services delivery. A lot more managed services will kind of, shape up, and then they have to justify the expense and help organizations with that as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Ritu. I think we are going to wrap up the session. So what I'll do, I will just launch a quick poll right now to see how you all like the webcast. Ritu, thank you so much for the time you spent with us today and all the insights. Like I said, you can access all the resources. Well, it seems like a lot of you are having issues accessing the resources right now. So we'll make sure to get them via email tomorrow if you haven't been able to download all the things. And with that, we will wrap up today's session. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Christina.
No problem. Bye-bye. Cheers.